What is up? Welcome citywide, statewide, nationwide. It is Line to Gain. I'm the big O, Jerry Ostroski. She is Sarah Marshall. We're back
Marshall.
on a Marshall. Why
Marshall.
did I say Sarah Marshall?
I'm just messing with you, Jerry.
Sarah Larson. I I told you already. I know what my problem is. You have
It's
to see. This gives you insight into what we have to deal with when when we get to a certain point in life.
yep. No, I'm just messing with you.
Uh, oh no, you need to mess with me. That's totally appropriate in this situation. She is Sarah Larson, and
Thank
she
you.
is in Miami. She was in Kansas City last week for the draft. I'm down here in Tulsa. Once again, it seems like when we do this vidcast, it rains in Tulsa. So it's raining again.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, it is. It's raining again, but
That must
happy
be
to be
bad
heading
luck.
into spring. No, I don't think you're bad luck. I think it's one of these things where um, you have to understand spring in Oklahoma. It gets nuts. So with rain comes tornadoes. With
Yeah.
tornadoes comes all kinds of stuff. It's lovely. But hey, before we get too into this, hit that like button, smash the subscribe button. We in season are here every Thursday night at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. We moved up a little bit today. We got some. Here's the thing, folks. We got families, man. We got stuff we got to do. We got obligations. So we're
Yeah,
here
I'm
on
excited.
a.
My son comes home from college. I haven't seen him in 4 months, so I'm looking forward to picking him up from the airport in a little bit, and then we go on a cruise next week. So it'll be fun.
Well, see, you get to go on a cruise. My oldest boy's here. He's out recruiting. He's recruiting for Drake University. And then my other boy that plays at TU, him and five of his buddies and one of the buddies' parents, they own a cottage over in Northwest Ireland. They're driving right now to, they're going to be in Chicago tomorrow, hopping on a plane and going to Dublin. They're spending 10 days in Ireland. So very jealous of what they're getting ready to do.
Yeah. I mean, Ireland's one of those places that's on my bucket list, so I can imagine.
Yeah, I can handle Ireland. I like Scotland. I'm not very much into England. My wife is, but I can do
I'll
without
find
it.
out this year. I've never been to London, so it'll be the first time. So I'll find out if I like it or not.
I'll tell you that it's going to be packed. It's going to be sold out. I mean, everybody I talk to,
Yeah,
mafia wise, most of them are going.
yeah.
I will probably stay back and watch it here. I am planning. I am planning my away game.
Okay.
There might be two away games this year because obviously Kansas City is a 3 hour drive for me, but there's
Right.
another away game of significance. You probably could figure it out if you know a little history about me and my background. That
What, the
I'm
Philadelphia game?
yes, I'm trying to get to the Philadelphia game. So I've never
Just let me
witnessed.
know so I can sit by you because then I don't have to worry about Philadelphia Eagles fans because
Well,
they're not gonna mess with you.
what's funny is we played there one year, and my parents went. My parents went to two away games. They went to a lot of away games, but two of the away games they went to, one was Philly, one was Pittsburgh. They wore gray. They went incognito. They wore
Oh,
no
really?
colors. Oh yeah, because they understood what it's. They didn't want to. They didn't want to listen to it. So, but anyway, hey, we got a lot going on today. Let's
Yeah.
kind of get on the show. What we're going to do today? What are we going to talk about?
Well, first and foremost, I just wanted to kind of share everybody, my experience going to the NFL draft. I was extremely blessed this year to be able to sit in the inner circle on day one. And then actually on day two, the NFL reps pulled me in for the overfill seats. So I actually got to sit underneath the stadium, the dome part, both days. So extremely lucky. Definitely lucked out. I think it was a little bit. I was with mom. We call her Mama J
Right.
on day two, and she's all decked out in like this dress and this hat, and so I think I lucked out a little bit on day two. But the everybody in the inner circle worked with the NFL reps, and they all got us in, and so it was pretty amazing. Getting to experience, just the fun part of being with not only the Bills fans doing it, but you sit by division. So it's Bills, Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots all in like a little square. And we have our own little section. So we're all trash talking with each other, but in a fun way. it's not game time yet. So, we're having fun with it. But I have a few photos that I wanted to kind of share so people know what it's like. Obviously the draft is a free, uh, it's a free experience, except for when you get underneath the actual dome part. They call it the theater.
Right.
Sitting in the theater, you either have to be invited to what they call the inner circle, or you have to pay for seats. They're very expensive seats. Uh, I did it last year in Vegas, because I said, if I'm going to experience this, I want to really experience it. They're very expensive seats. So for the draft, it's kind of crazy to spend that much money, just to let you know. But if you can go for free, I suggest it. It doesn't matter where you are. The TVs are huge. You can see everything. And it's just fun, to be with, so many different people. But I just wanted to share a couple of pictures of what it looks like, and then a couple of stories throughout, um, what we experienced. This was when the draft first started and Roger came out, and then obviously some pictures that have made it throughout Twitter. I found myself on quite a few Buffalo news pages and different article things. So people were sending me messages left and right saying, "You're on this website and you're on this
Right.
website." Um, what was really cool is where the Bills were sitting. So the Bills inner circle was sitting. So we were right next to the families. So you know me, I'm very talkative. I talk to everybody. Started talking to the people in the first picture. They were Anthony Richardson's family. And one of them, from Anthony Richardson's family, came up to me and was like, "Just let you know, huge Buffalo Bills fan." He's like, "I live in South Florida. It's hard." And I was like, "I live in South Florida too. I understand." So, started talking to them. And actually, when Anthony Richardson was picked, they came up and hugged me before going up to like congratulate him, which was funny. So, you definitely become kind of friendly with everybody around you. Bryce Young's family, came up. One of them came up and showed us a wallet that he had that had the Bills logo on it. They were great too. Everyone was so super friendly. And they were just all excited because they knew what was going on. That day they knew that they were going to get picked soon, and I actually said to Anthony Richardson's family, I was like, "I think you're going to the Colts. I think that's where he's going to go." So glad to be able to share that experience with them. It was pretty cool. um
My twins, their PE teacher was in the inner circle with the Titans. He was on
okay.
TV a couple times, so we got to see him as well.
I'm so sure everyone joked with me saying, "I saw your eyebrows."
Well,
So
if people know Stephanie, I did see Stephanie. I
yep.
saw her on there once.
Yep, and, there was one time that I actually stood on a chair, and that was the one time when I was standing on the chair that you, could see, like, my chin because they actually were down, so I never could win, so I could never get on actual television. But everybody knows Bill's Elvis. His name is John Lang. He was, voted for, Bills Fan of the Year, so he was there. This guy right here, his name is also John. He is
Yep,
the KC Bills backers.
yep.
Guy,
Got to
you
meet
met
him up at
him.
the game. Yep, got
You
to meet
met
him at
him
the
last
game.
year. Yep. Yep.
Yep, at Taps.
We all got to hold the call card for Dalton Kincaid, signed by Roger Goodell, and then one of the people that were there got to take it home with them, which was a cool souvenir.
It's funny and if you follow Twitter, it depends on if you care about getting picks spoiled or not. But Albert Breer was tipping everything like 5 minutes before 10, almost sometimes 10 minutes before it even was announced.
Yeah, yeah. The day one wasn't bad, but day two I was getting alerts on my phone,
Right.
like 5-10 minutes before they announced. I was like, oh well, I probably should either silence this or I should act like I know what the heck I'm talking about and call all these call all these picks. And so this is obviously not Andy Reid, but it was funny because he actually walked like him and everything. It was hilarious. So we made it on the Jumbotron together and everything. So this guy was cool. He was walking around giving everybody hugs and talking to everybody, walked around with the Sharpie in his hand, just like Andy Reid would. Really hilarious. There was also a a Mike Ditka lookalike with the sweater vest on and everything. He was pretty much over in the NFC section, so I saw him once and then couldn't really mingle with him much. But and, it's really cool getting to see everybody dressed up and everything, especially down in the inner circle. You get a lot of people who dress up pretty crazy and ridiculous to get down there. You have some people that I met last year at the Superfans party. I got to see them again this year, all sitting down there, which is really cool. And then this was at Taps on Main. Everyone got
Oh,
together
so you
and
were back. You were back at Taps on Main.
I went to Taps on Main after day one, and in the afternoon right before day two, before I went down for the draft, and everyone kind of met up there. So this was day one after the draft. We all got together, and then obviously Pinto Ron, or his real name's Kenny. He was there. Um, at day one, day two, he went to the Superfans party. This is Mama J, so this is probably why they pulled us in. I was very lucky. She's been to like 100 and no 200 and like 30 games straight, home and away. She's
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. My 42 don't measure up at all compared to what she's done. And then Kenny Pinto Ron, he has been to 465 straight. So they definitely are goals, which I don't think I'll ever attain, but it's still fun to talk with them about it all. Everything. And then this was my little claim to fame. This an NFL reporter had taken this picture, and he came over and asked me if I wanted it. So he emailed it to me. So I was like, woohoo, maybe I'll make TV. And then I didn't. So but it was fun. We had a great time, like I said, just getting to talk to the families and getting to meet people. There was one thing right here. So this was one funny story, quick before we get into everything. So this guy actually lives, this Dolphin fan actually lives in South Florida. He is a Hurricane fan, and we are friends on Facebook. Um, and so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I look up, I'm like, Derek? And he was like, Sarah? Really funny. So he was in the inner circle for the Dolphins, and we were, sitting across from each other. And then this guy, I met last year. His name is Joe. I met last year at the draft, and I was walking, and he was like, Sarah? And I was like, hey. So it's kind of funny how, like, once you start going to the draft, how you really start to meet people, and you're never alone. I literally went by myself, and I ended up knowing so many people. And then if you didn't know people, you got to know people. So it was definitely a cool experience. I can't hear you. You're muted.
There you go. I get so into watching it on TV because of all I like the in depth stuff and
Right.
everything else. But I can imagine being there and just experiencing it, and especially getting the opportunity to sit next to the players' families and seeing how excited they are. And unfortunately, there was some heartbreak as well. Joey Porter Jr. goes in the second round, and then obviously the quarterback from Kentucky, his situation. So, but they went off the board 1-2 the next day, which was nice. And if you
Yeah.
really look at it, you could say Joey Porter Jr. actually went in the first round because of the one less
Yep.
pick,
The one less
with the
pick.
Dolphins losing theirs. So, obviously there's a little bit of money that they lost, but still, I think it ended well for them. And cool experience. That's
Yeah,
awesome to share
it
those
definitely
pictures.
was. Definitely a cool experience. And I actually told myself I'm not going next year to Detroit, but then by the end of the draft, I was like, maybe I will.
Really curious, really curious to see what Detroit does, because I personally thought they did a hell of a job in the draft, and they picked players that specifically fit
Yeah. I like
their
Detroit's
culture and
draft.
what they're trying to do. And I think that town's getting a little bit re-energized as far as getting behind the
Yeah.
Lions.
I'm intrigued to see how Chicago does. I kind of liked their draft. Detroit. Um I kind of liked a couple picks on Pittsburgh as well. The Steelers, I think they drafted pretty well. So we'll see. It's always interesting. we got pretty decent draft grades for the Bills. So I'm intrigued to see how how we respond to what we picked, and hopefully they all play.
Exactly.
All right. So, first and foremost, getting into a few things. So, kind of everyone keeps on talking about, Kansas City and us and Cincinnati all still being the three top. Um, Not according to the Jets. They all literally acted like from the moment they were insufferable, by the way, from the moment they got to the draft to the moment they
Yeah.
left, that they have already won the Super Bowl at this point in time. But they went out and they ended up signing Cobb to a contract like $3 million guaranteed, which is surprising to me. So he seems like he's going to be on that roster. So pretty much was looking at right now they have Wilson, Lazard, Hardman, Davis, Mims, Cobb, and then they have the tight ends Conklin, Usama, and Kuntz. Plus they have Brees Hall when he comes back, Carter, and then Israel. Um, they actually have a pretty decent on paper, a pretty decent offense. So I am really on board with the fact, kind of the change of thought process on where we are standing with the tight or with the linebackers right now. A lot of people are kind of confused as to what we did there. I don't want to diverge too much from the topic, but I actually think the Jets, in my opinion, might have taken a step ahead of the Dolphins. I was kind of saying that they were pretty much tied. I actually think that they might finish with one game more, one more win, I should say, than the Dolphins. Um, they have a decent roster, and then I think they have a better defense than the Dolphins.
If you look at how it went down, obviously I think the Jets have a world class defense. Now they've got arguably the best quarterback. Obviously he's a veteran. He's been around a while, but when you talk about Aaron Rodgers, you talk about a Super Bowl champion, you talk about a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer. This is a guy that speaks for himself, and you bring him and most importantly his leadership to that football team. Is bringing in Cobb and doing a few things they've done on offense enough? I don't know, but I do know this: when you have a defense that is of that caliber, you're always in games. So, I truly believe the AFC East is the best division in football right now. I really do. I think it's a murderer's row. I think Miami is probably, on paper anyway, the fastest team in the NFL, maybe next to Kansas City, but they have speed everywhere. The Jets
Yeah.
being physical and doing the things they do. They added some help on the offensive line in the second and fourth round. They took Tittman, the center from Wisconsin, in the second, and Carter Warren, the tackle from Pittsburgh, in the fourth. They got better in the draft. There is no doubt about it. Sleeper pick for them is their seventh round pick, the tight end Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion. He's a transfer guy, really, really good player as well. So they're loaded up. I mean, who'd have thought, if you look at the division right now, the weakest team is probably New England.
Oh, well, I mean, I've been saying that for a while now. So I mean, I just don't even put them in the conversation anymore. The only reason why we even talk about them is because of coaching at this point, because Belichick, arguably the best coach ever, next to maybe Andy Reid. So obviously he's they we still talk about him because there's always still a chance, but the Jets actually are, with now that they have Nicole Hartman, they're actually pretty darn fast as well, and Brees Hall. I had did a post on Twitter about how fast the Dolphins were, and someone was like, well, what about the Jets? And so I did their top like 5 or 6 as well. They have like 5 or 6 under 4-4 guys. So definitely both fast. And that's why I kind of like the change in mindset that we have going in at linebacker. Another team that has made quite a bit of offensive moves is the Ravens. Obviously they have Lamar, now they have OBJ. They drafted Zay Flowers, which a lot of people thought might have been the best, if not the second best, wide receiver in the draft. They already had Duvernay and Bateman. They have Aguilar now, Andrews, obviously, and then Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, and then obviously Lamar as running back as well. So I think that a lot of people aren't putting the Ravens in the discussion because they haven't finished in the playoffs, like really playoff talk over the last couple of years. But they are, with a healthy Lamar, they should definitely be up
Right.
there as well.
Well, one thing Lamar does for you is you don't have to be as talented on offense as some other teams because Lamar ad-libs so well with his athleticism, his ability to run, make plays with his feet. And then also, as we know, he's got a tremendously strong arm. He's a streaky thrower. I don't think he is. I notice I didn't use the term passer. I definitely believe he's a thrower still. And that's just his style. I mean, you have to accept it. You have to go with it. And he does so much athletically. It's really hard it was really hard for me to think that Baltimore wasn't going to find a way to get this done and get him back on the roster. He
Right.
obviously is. I thought his press conference was really good today. Obviously he's the highest paid, has the biggest contract ever in NFL history right now. But, let bygones be bygones. Understand it was all business. He talked about that today. If you're going to go ahead and represent yourself, you're going to have thick skin and understand you're going to hear some things. But this is a 2-year process. They got him back in the fix in the mix, and I think that Baltimore plays again another team that plays really well on defense. And now you bring Lamar back. You got a few other pieces. It'll be nice to see it'll be interesting to see what happens with OBJ and how he progresses off of the ACL. But they've definitely gotten better also.
Yeah. All right. When the Bills signed Puna Ford and Latavius Murray, how do you feel about these two signings?
Well, I think that the one thing that Bean has done for me is kind of indicated what I've been talking about for the past 3 months, which is they've got to get better up the middle. And everything that he's done over the last 3 to 4 months is try to strengthen that football team up the middle. I was disappointed that I thought maybe we were going to fall into one of these defensive linemen, especially Maisie Smith, the one that went to Dallas. We decided to take Kincaid, who obviously top-notch route runner, still young in football, hasn't played very much, but his route running and his hands are world-class. So obviously he'll do good things for us. But still, that signing the other day was more exciting to me than most of the draft picks we saw.
Well, I mean, I thought it was a pipe dream. I mentioned it, several months ago, and I said there is absolutely no way we could figure out how to afford Puna on this team. So I'm extremely excited. He is one guy that has played both 1-tech and 3-tech. So a lot of people are automatically putting him behind Daquan Jones as kind of like his backup. There will be times where he can be side by side with Daquan. So, and I'm excited.
I'm not really sure he's coming in to back up.
I don't think so either, which means that Oliver is going to kind of be the odd man out. And size-wise, Oliver is the odd man out. If you look at Settle, if you look at Phillips, if you look at Ford, and if you look at Jones, they're all 300-plus monsters. And then you got, Oliver, who's, 285-ish. So,
here's what people have to get, though, Sarah, and I think this is something that people are overlooking a little bit. When McDermott decided to take this defense over, some of the criticisms you heard out of One Bills Drive, too predictable. We sat in the same front all the time. We weren't multi-front. We weren't moving around. I don't necessarily know if you'll see Ed playing a 3 technique all the time, or you might see him in a 4-eye. You might see him maybe even as a boundary end sometimes. I don't think you're going to see him inside as much as he was last year. I think you're going to see he's going to be the guy that moves all over the front.
I agree. And I actually was going to tweet something the other day, and I was like, people will jump all over me if I say move Ed to the end. But I mean, I think there's a chance there. I mean, obviously it depends on what play is being called in that moment. But I mean, I don't see Ed being our interior answer at all anymore. So I actually think we'll try.
It's situational. It's situational.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. It depends on what play is being called in that moment. But I actually think we're going to really try to move on from Oliver during during camp and preseason. And we might even take something less. Because if you look at the projected 53, no matter who's doing it, it is very hard to narrow this roster down to 53 people. And people are talking about, we need one more piece, we need one more edge rusher, which adds a whole other wrinkle to the 53 man roster if we expect that person to actually make the team. So same thing with Latavius Murray. I right away was like, he'll be on the practice squad. I don't see a path for the 53. But the more I've thought about it, I'm actually changing my mind. I actually think he'll be on the 53 man roster, provided he doesn't come into camp and look terrible or something. So I think it'll be interesting to see how we cut down this roster this year. I
Well,
really like the Murray pick. Go ahead.
uh, go ahead. You finish up your
No, I
thoughts,
was
and
just
then
gonna
I'll
say I
go
really
back.
like the Murray pick because we don't have someone that big that can be the thumper that we need on the short yardage. Yes, we have Reggie Gilliam, but at the same time he's more of the blocker in my opinion. I don't think he's necessarily as good with the ball in his hands. So I like it. I like the pick, especially for the fact that it was for basically the vet minimum.
Well, going back to, I want to go back to Ed Oliver and Puna Ford. Now,
Mhm.
Puna, the thing that was intriguing about that is it's the first time we've seen Buffalo, maybe ever, had a guy come out and say, "I decided to take less money to make a Super Bowl run." Um, there's a lot of guys that do that throughout the league. They don't go to cold weather small market cities. They go to Miami. They go to Vegas. They go to New York. Now, here's a guy that's coming to Buffalo. I think that's a big deal. I think that says a lot about the organization and also says a lot about what is being said by players throughout the league.
Right.
So to get that type of guy for less money fills a huge need. Going back to Ed, unless Ed is traded for another player or traded for picks, Ed's not going anywhere. I don't.
Oh, I don't think we'll
I
release him. No, 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 no. I was
we
saying 4
we
picks or
tend
something.
to make. I understand, but we tend to make certain people public enemy number one. Ed's that guy right now. I think there's a lot of people down on him. I don't think, you don't, to me, I would not give him a huge defensive tackle contract either. But Ed is still a very, very good football player and will produce for us and will be better because he won't be asked to do the things all the time that he's not good at, which
I
is
just
trying
think
to take on double teams, trying to hold the A gap
right.
or B gap and all that stuff. I think that he's going to be able to move in multiple fronts, use his speed, use his size to an advantage. And I think he's going to be productive just because of what McDermott puts him in situation wise.
Hopefully, I just don't know if it's $10.5 million productive, which is why if we can move on, I think that we will, because there are other pieces to the puzzle that again won't he doesn't quite fit into that 53 if we want to keep some other players. So uh again, we have no idea. He could come out and he could have a Tremaine Edmonds type of fifth year. We have no idea if that's going to happen, and if he's put in the right situations, maybe he does, and then we can all eat our words and be extremely happy that he was worth the $10.5 million cap hit. I just don't. I don't have that confidence right yet.
Well, I mean, like I said, we've got to hate on somebody, and he's new. He's the new target. He's the new target,
Yeah.
and it's quite. Here's the deal: anybody in the league would give Ed Oliver $10.5 million tomorrow to have another experienced defensive lineman on their team. That's how scarce those guys are. I don't necessarily think that, 10.5 is, if you're sitting there trying to count numbers, trying to figure out a way to get D Hop here, right away, you go to him. It's kind of the same thing I do with Mitch Morse. I love Mitch Morse. You could save some money there. But I think that I'm really intrigued by the fact that our head coach is now going to run this defense, and we're going to get back to an aggressive style, a physical style, a blitzing style. I remember McDermott when he coached with Andy Reid in Philly. That defensive line and that defensive front seven got after it. Very situational, blitz-wise in certain parts of the field. So I think that when you try to ask somebody to do something they're not really good at doing, you know, I think in a lot of ways, Ed's maybe been the good soldier the last couple of years because of what they've asked him to do. I think his situation will be different this year, and I think he will be productive. But I also don't think he's going to get a blockbuster defensive line contract from us. He'll probably be going somewhere else next year when the open
Oh, for
market
sure.
happens, which is fine. Which is fine.
The one
But
thing you
I
said, Jerry, the one thing you said is that anybody would be willing to pay $10.5 million. So either the Bills are absolutely never have even considered trading Oliver, or no one has offered that trade. Because
well,
if you,
why offer that money when you just are going to sit back and let a team cut him?
but
You know,
we won't
that's
cut him
just
this
smart
year.
business.
No, 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 we
Right.
won't cut him this year. There's absolutely no
Right.
reason. No, but that's my point. There's no way we're going to cut him this year. So the only way you're going to get that is through trade. So if someone's willing to pay $10.5 million for his contract, all you're
Yeah.
giving up is a what, fourth, fifth round probably. So
Yeah.
it, I just, so I
And
kind of disagree.
you're telling me that you know that Bean would be willing to take a fourth and fifth round pick for a
No,
guy that
I'm
was picked
saying
what, 13 overall? Hmm.
no, that's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm saying you said that there's teams out there, like every team out there would be willing to pay $10.5
Yeah.
million for an experienced guy. And I'm saying, well, if that's the case, why why wasn't there more talk about him being moved? So either the Bills are dead set on not moving him,
Right.
or no one offered. So it's
I
it's one
personally
one or the
believe
other.
the Bills are dead set on not moving him.
Gotcha. All
That's
right.
the way I look
So
at it.
all right. So let's get to the draft. So pick 25. We moved up from 27. We jumped over Dallas to their dismay. Supposedly, some people are saying that they smoke and mirrors, that they really weren't going to pick a tight end anyways. But we picked Dalton Kincaid with that 25th pick. So what are your thoughts?
You know, going into this area, you know, we've talked about it on the show. We've had conversations at length about it. I was not a proponent of a first round tight end. Um, but when you look at the caliber of Dalton Kincaid and you look at what he does, let's tap the brakes a little bit. The signing of Dalton Kincaid does not put us into 12 personnel. I made this comment the other week.
11 and a
We're
half.
we're 11 and a half. Okay, what Dalton Kincaid does do in today's football is a couple things. One is you're going to be able to disguise personnel groups or formations because he can go in and out. So he can play inline tight end, he can play off the ball H, motion, run, do those types of things with the zone. He can also go out and run the slot. The thing that's really, really intriguing about him in the slot is with the way football is being played nowadays, where we only have two linebackers 99% of the time on the field, you're going to get some massive mismatches with him in the slot. It should open up Diggs a little more. It should open up
Right.
our other receivers better. I expect him to have a very good year. Now, the thing that he's going to have to learn to do, and it's really intriguing to me how they play him, is I think that, and without doing extensive film study on him, most young receivers have this problem when they come into the game. It's being able to get off of somebody in their chest. You're gonna see what he's a good route runner, but can he run routes with somebody being physical with him in the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage? That's something he's gonna have to learn a little bit about as the season goes on.
Right. So Matt, someone here at Rumblings, and I told him I was going to steal it from him. He joked the other day about him not being a wide, him not being a slot, and him not being a tight
Right,
end. He's just a
right,
receiver.
right,
So as much as first thing when we picked him, in my head, I'm like, 12 personnel, here we come. Finally, can I have, two tight ends out there? And opposite of me wanting Darnell Washington, Darnell was going to be the one out there mostly blocking, and Knox was going to be able to open up. I believe Kincaid is mostly going to be going to be lined up in the slot. There was, Beasley got pretty upset when someone compared him to Beasley. He's like, "Don't compare me to a tight end, please." But someone said that he is Beasley in a tight end body. He can run the routes. He has the sure hands. He was arguably the best receiver in the whole draft.
right.
So I think it'll be interesting to see where we do line him up. And then Knox, I think, is going to have to be a little bit more okay with that blocking role sometimes, because I think Kincaid's going to blossom into that number two wide receiver. I think that we or number two option. Let me correct how I put it. I think he will quickly blossom into that number two wide receiver or option out there. So um, I think that'll open up Davis as well, and I'm hoping that he can have a breakout year. But the biggest thing is that, Diggs is going to have a whole lot more single coverage. And I think that that's going to, open up Dorsey's playbook a lot. And we can throw to Kincaid, we can throw to Knox, we can throw to, three out of the four people in our, guys in our backfield. I think that, it was probably if I was starting to be a little disappointed that we didn't get a wide receiver early, but the more I watched Kincaid, I'll be honest, I didn't do a huge deep dive on him really prior because I did not think he was ever going to make it to pick 20, let alone pick 25. So I'm intrigued. I've watched a lot more about him. Obviously I knew who he was, but you only see all the highlights because he was supposed to be such a high pick. So um, I'm definitely excited to see what this does for our offense. And then our second
Go,
pick,
let me
go
say
ahead.
something real quick about Kincaid. I don't think Kincaid being on the field gives Diggs single coverage. You get single coverage out of having four wideouts, things like that. I think what it'll do, I think Diggs is still the man. Diggs is still going to get his coverage. They're still going to bracket him. The problem is the football is going to probably go somewhere else
If
because
that's the
of
case, yep,
guys getting open. I think that's a big thing. But yeah,
yep.
I think it will free Diggs up a little bit. You are right. But I don't think, he's going to command his double coverage. I mean, he's just too good. If you're
Well,
going to
and if
single coverage, if you're going to single cover him the whole game, unless you have somebody like an elite or like one of the top three deep corners in the league, it'll be a long day for
and
you.
like you said though, if he does garner the double coverage, then you have somebody else that's
Right.
open.
Right.
So it's going to be up to Allen this year to
But
recognize that.
Dorsey, and I think the biggest question is, does Dorsey know how to utilize these weapons? Now, obviously, he's a Miami guy. They had Shockey. They had Winslow. They had some really good tight ends down there. I
TEU.
know, yeah. So it's like you would like to think that he could utilize a tight end, but we'll see.
And maybe he just felt like last year, we didn't have that second tight end. Maybe he didn't, maybe they didn't look at Morris the same way some of us did.
Right.
Um, because Knox had the same amount of, the Mafia Cast was talking about this right before our show. He had the same amount of targets and pretty much, I think, two less receptions this year than last year. What was really down was his touchdown receptions, but
Right.
still, I think he's had 9 last year and he had 6 this year or something like that. Still very highly productive. So, I think we just expected Knox to go crazy, and he didn't. But he was also dealing with, his brother's death last year, and maybe he never really got right. I don't know. I know you're not a fan of excuses, so I'll leave the excuses alone.
No, that's
But
fine. I agree with that. I'm a big Knox fan. I'm with Ed stepping into the role of public enemy number one, it puts Knox in public enemy number two. Because there for a while he was public enemy number one. So,
well,
but
I
no,
think
I
Davis.
agree.
I think Davis still might take that
No,
that hit right now.
Davis is in his own club. He doesn't even have anybody under him. He's his own elite club. He gets no. There is no one in his group.
All right. So with the second pick, pick 59, we got Osiris Torrance, which was pretty much, mocked to us in probably 75% of our of the mock drafts in the first round, and we got him at pick 59. I'm going to start with this one just because I actually got to talk to him at the Senior Bowl. And he was very personable. He laughed and he actually joked. 'Cause I asked him what he, felt like he would play, whether or not it would be guard or tackle, and he said he's pretty much exclusively right guard. And then he joked, he's like, I don't know if you want to see me at center, but if need be, he's like, I would work to be the best center, that I can be, blah blah blah. But he did joke a lot. He was very light with all of the media, and he not so humbly said that he felt like he was the best guard available. He's over 3,000 snaps. I definitely commented on several different podcasts this over 3,000 snaps in college and no career sacks allowed, and only 2 penalties in 4 years. My only concern with him really is that he went from a smaller school to SEC, and unfortunately the Gators didn't have the year that they thought they were going to have. So to me, I don't know if we got to see enough or like the best of him against people like Alabama and Georgia and kind of those math teams that you like to compare them to. Um, but you start watching this guy and the holes that he opens up. I think that this is finally going to be one of those moments that we can say, hey, we have somebody not only to protect Josh, but maybe to open up some gaps so that our running backs can actually make a first down instead of going backwards. So I was super excited about pick 56 or so. I looked around at a couple of people. I was like, Torrance is still on the board, isn't he? And everyone's like, yeah. I was like, that's our pick. I was like, if we don't move up right now, and I was like, I'm gonna be surprised, but if he's still there at 59 and 3 picks, that's our pick. So, you know, the second we picked him, I'm on video going, I told you. So, how do you feel about him?
I love the pick. I think it's basically another first round pick for us that we got in the second round.
Agreed.
A huge man. The best thing that's going to happen to him is he's going to get in that NFL weight room. They're going to work on his nutrition. They'll probably cut him up a little bit. They'll get some weight off of him, maybe put it back on in another way. But I mean, you just can't coach what he has. He has elite size. He has elite strength. Just an absolute mauler in there. And I don't feel the same way you do about the whole being in Florida for a year. I mean, this guy played against anybody in the SEC basically is pretty good. Now, granted, if he'll get a chance to play against Georgia again this season when he plays the Eagles, because they've drafted the entire Georgia defense, so he's going to get to play against Georgia. So we'll find out if he plays against those elites. But no, I mean, this is what I've been I've just been asking for. They've just size, strength, just the opportunity to get in there and put hands on somebody and actually physically move them from point A to point B. Sarah, this also gives you what you've talked about, is it gives Bates the opportunity to play on the left side of the ball, right? Mm-hmm. And, I don't think that McGovern is locked in as the starting left guard. I mean, I think Bates is going to push him. I think Bates has a chance to beat him out. I don't think anybody we signed I don't think any of these free agents we signed are locks as far as playing.
The only reason why I disagree a little bit is because to me, Bates can play all three interior positions. Yep. So I think that McGovern will start, and I think that Torrance will start.
But why does playing all three keep you from starting?
Well, I'm just saying more reps. Let's not even say start. So the percentage of reps at each position. I think that McGovern will get the more percentage at left guard. Cyrus Torrance will get the most at right guard. And then Bates, I feel like, will play all three interior positions as needed. I still think he'll get out there as many snaps. I think the percentage wise, he'll still be out there as many snaps. But I don't know, and maybe you can attest to this a little bit more, how hard it would be to rotate position throughout the game. But I think that if anyone could do it, it's Bates. He seems the most proven to be able to play each position. I just don't know per game, whether or not that'll make a difference. But I think that he's the swing guy, so I feel like he would come in to kind of spell the other three.
I think that you'll see them in camp do this, and this is why I see it. So if you think like Torrance will never leave the field. Torrance will get so many reps, he will hate football halfway through training camp. He's never leaving the field. He will get every rep known to man. Morris is a guy that doesn't need every rep. So if there's days where they're giving him veteran days off, you'll see Bates over there. I personally think Bates and McGovern will trade off first team reps at left guard equally, until they decide who, maybe's coming out ahead of the other. Or if you want to play detective and you look at some of the things that Bean has said recently about Bates getting you out of a game at tackle if you needed them to, maybe they've already made that decision. I don't think they have.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if you looked at last year's offensive line, what about it gives you any reason to say, okay, we're set in stone?
Right.
To me, there's only two. Well, I guess there's three guys set in stone because you got Dion out there, but you got Morris and then you got Torrance. Torrance, like I said, he will get every rep possible. So there will
And
be some
Spencer Brown
battles in
at this
there.
point, he's locked in. We don't have, we're not going to start
Well, Sarah,
questioning
you
it.
you said something a couple weeks ago that I think was so highly. You said something. You made a statement was so on point, and I don't know if I brought this up to you before the last show, but I'm going to bring it up again. When you said that Dion got to a point where he looked kind of just complacent or
Mhm.
disinterested or just kind of like, okay, nobody's here to push me, so I can do whatever I want. I think that's a huge thing. That's the one thing that we missed in this draft, in this offseason, unless one of these other guys comes out of the woodwork and turns into some kind of super tackle. But I wish we would have brought a tackle in to push both of them,
Right.
because there's really no competition on our football team at either tackle. And I really wish we did that, because I agree with you. Dion, when Dion is right, Dion is a top tackle in the league. I mean, this is a Pro Bowl guy. You know, people are going to say, well, he went to the Pro Bowl, whatever. That a lot of that stuff after a while becomes word of mouth. It becomes kind of just a, you know, whatever. It just happens. But I wish we had somebody to push him a little bit. Um, Obviously, the seventh rounder is not it, but it would have been nice. But it'll. I think our offensive line battle is not. It's not set in stone. I think there's going to definitely be some rotating, some moving around, and some experimenting
Right.
this
I think the
preseason camp.
biggest thing is whether or not we decide to keep 9 offensive linemen or if we're going to keep 10 because at this point in time whether or not we would keep Edwards, the guy that came in from LA, if we only keep 9 guys, it's not happening. And then we have our 7th round pick, which I also met at the Senior Bowl. And he needs a lot of he needs some time. He needs a lot of work to get to be up to par
Right.
for an NFL
My
team.
son actually played against him and actually went one on one against him in the game when we played at Ole Miss. He's got to get in the weight room. I know he's a big
Yep.
kid. They talk about his strength. He's got to he's got to work on his feet. He's got to move a little bit. I know that he was the Kent Hull Offensive Lineman of the Year down in Mississippi when he was in high school, all of that, which is an awesome story. They gave him number 67 because of it, which is still a little bit weird to me. I never,
Yeah,
that 67 is kind of sacred, but yeah,
I
I think
understand that.
he will be on the practice squad, or unless he comes to camp and
Right.
just shows out like nobody's ever seen.
And
I think
again,
he's your
trying
definite practice squad guy.
when you look at the 53, and Matt in the comments put Mance in question mark. That's why I think you keep Bates as swing because you don't need a backup center any longer. All you need
Yeah, Bates
is,
ain't going anywhere.
well, that's what we don't need Mance if we keep Bates
Right.
as that rotational swing guy for all 3 interior
And
positions.
I don't know this for sure, but I believe that McGovern has snapped a little bit as well.
Yes, he's played all 3 interior positions as well. Yes.
So yes, Mance would be
But
the
he's
odd
not
man
as
out.
good at all 3, and that's self-admitted.
Well,
So, well, but again, it's all, whether or not they can, adjust and make changes and everything else. Um, and then I think you have I think Tommy Doyle's position might be a little bit of a question if
right,
we decide to keep, um, even if we decide to keep 10 and we decide to keep the rookie,
right.
the 7th round pick. So it'll be interesting again to see what they do with this 53 man roster. Next time we meet, we'll kind of go over who I have on, the cusp.
Awesome.
And, we'll go over that. Let's quickly talk about everyone's favorite draft pick. the our third round draft pick, Dorian Williams. Um, so first and foremost, before we talk about the pick, a lot of people probably have seen Bean's um, podcast interview that he did the other day, where he pretty much alluded to the fact that letting go of Edmonds might have been part of the plan. That it was kind of strategic, that even though he's great at one thing, he tended to be lacking at something else, depending on if there was a mismatch. And he talked about a lot of those, a lot of the slot guys, and the speed, um, and that there being a mismatch there. So I think that he kind of alluded to the fact that we are going to be more aggressive, and he wanted us to be, that McDermott probably wanted us to be smaller, faster. And, when you look at especially the teams that we play twice, the AFC East, how fast they are, I think it's brilliant. As much as we don't want to, there, you can't replace Edmonds. So why not go in a different route, go down a different route, and get somebody else. To me, Dorian Williams, and I've watched him play twice, the whole game, not just the highlights. I watched him play against Tulsa, which was one of his better games. And then I watched him in the Cotton Bowl against USC. And for those people comparing him to Bernard, to me, the similarities kind of stop at draft position and size. Yes, they are very similar in size. Yes, they got drafted in the third round, around the same pick, but they play very different. So I implore anyone who is interested to watch both of their tapes. Have it be all highlights. I don't care. But watch them. They're both very different. Dorian Williams is very physical. He is fast. He is faster than he looks. Like,
Yep.
on film, he's a lot faster than he is in his 40 and all that stuff. He, to me, it's like see ball, get ball. Like he is that kind of guy. He sees the ball and it's like a magnet. Like he is going for it. So, um, I think that the guy could potentially be our starting middle linebacker. It's kind of crazy to say it. Bernard still has a chance. Dotson has a chance, I believe, but honestly think that the way that they're looking at the defense now, is they're really not separating too much between the different positions, and that's why they're all about the same size and height and weight.
Well, the thing to me that was amazing was I never, and first of all, if you're trying to compare Williams to Edmonds, stop,
No point.
stop. And I've been alluding to this whole thing with Bean and and the franchise maybe actually not wanting to re-sign Edmonds for quite a while. I you know I know he's big, but he did not play as big as he is. He was a drop coverage guy. He was a run guys down, make plays in space. But with our lack of size inside on the defensive line, guards and centers climb up on linebackers instantly. He wasn't that great at shedding blocks and wasn't that great at taking on offensive linemen. The thing about Williams is, and you talk about, is he not as physical? Yes, he probably isn't, but he's gone. He doesn't need to be physical. He is you made a great point.
I think he actually is very physical.
Well, no,
He's
he's
just smaller.
physical, but right, he's
He's
physical. But the point I was trying to make was, and you said it earlier, I was going to give you props, was that he runs so well. He's going to run stuff down, see ball, get ball, like you said. Yeah, he can stick his face in there. I said that a little bit wrong, but the point I was trying to make was we want to make this big comparison to Edmonds and make this believe that Edmonds was so big and he was so physical. He didn't play physical.
right,
He didn't play to his size. He wasn't a stick your face into a gap and blow people up guy. He didn't do it.
right. And I
I
think
love this. I love this pick. I think this pick is awesome, and it freaked me out that so many people didn't like it. I think
I
this
don't think
pick was
people knew about him as enough
right,
as that, you heard of three, you heard of Sanders, Simpson, and Campbell as the only linebackers, at
right,
all. That's all anyone
right.
talked about. But again, I had watched him before, and like I said, I really, and I'm not even saying just his highlights. When you watch him play, he plays very much. I think Daryl put it. He said the one thing about Williams is that he plays bigger than Bernard. They're the same size, but the way he hits, the way he plays, it's very different. So take a look at both of them before people are still confused by the pick. I think it's actually a really good pick. Do I think that he might be Edmonds year one? No, but either was Edmonds or year 5, I should say.
Right.
Edmonds, his
Edmonds had
first year,
issues at year
he
5.
struggled. He
Right.
struggled his first couple of years. So, there was a question whether or not they were even going to do his 5th-year option at one point.
And see,
He
I
came out.
disagree with. And go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish up, and then I will make
No, I
a
was just gonna say
comment.
he came out in his 5th year, and Edmonds had a great year last year. He really did. So yes, we're all in our feelings a little bit because he's gone, but we just got somebody in the 3rd round that I think is going to be very complementary to the defense that McD is going to be running this year.
I don't agree with AK Cash. I don't agree with it. I don't think the Lions pick of Campbell at 18 is a joke pick. Campbell's a tremendous player. Campbell is a star. In that system, they're going to run more of a traditional defensive system. That's what they do.
I laughed when they picked him at 18. I was like, well, now I don't have to worry about the Bills picking him.
Right.
But at the same time, I was like, you know what? If someone's willing to pick him at 18, obviously, especially the Lions, with Campbell as the coach, I'm like, they obviously see something in him that I have yet to see. So I'm ready to eat my words when he comes out and he plays well and performs. My only thing is that there wasn't a lot of linebackers in this draft. So do I feel like they reached a little bit? Yes, I do. I really do. But he probably the best linebacker in the draft? Yes. I mean, there's really no, question about that. I
But we
just
talked
think
about. Go
18
ahead.
was kind of crazy. I
We
just thought
talked about.
18 was crazy.
I don't know. I don't know how picking a guy with that much production at 18 is crazy. It's mind-boggling to me. And if they didn't take him, he'd probably end up in Pittsburgh and do the same thing.
Like I said, I think that he was the best linebacker in the draft, and that's why they probably felt they needed to take him early. And I
But
am
there's
not
always
going
a
to
but.
question.
There's always a but.
I
There's
am
always
going
a
to question
but.
Dan Campbell. I believe, I believe that he is smart, especially defensively, especially for linebackers. So I think that it will be fun to now that I don't have to worry about him producing on the Bills. I can't wait to watch him for the Lions.
But before we get to the super chat by John here in a second, I will say this. There is an interesting thing going around right now in the NFL, and the phenomenon is this. We've devalued running backs for so long. Linebacker now is the next position that is getting devalued because we're not playing with 3 of them anymore. We're not playing with 4 of them anymore. We're only playing with 2 of them. So linebacker now has kind of met that status of a devalued position. But go ahead with the super chat.
John DeFazio said, D. Williams is McDermott's response to the type of defenders he likes against the type of offense we will face in the AFC East. He is a better tackler than Edmonds now, which is pretty much what I was saying. So thank you, John, for agreeing with me. I love it. But I mean,
So,
the AFC East, like I said, they're just getting faster and faster. So it'll be, I think that what McDermott's going to do is he's going to be what we all complained about when it came to Frazier was he didn't attack enough. We were always off, pretty much in zone or off the ball. You had 10, 15 yards, space in between everybody. We weren't attacking. We never blitzed. So I look forward to seeing McD get a little bit more aggressive.
I think this is something we talked about Monday night, and I want to address this because I see this a lot in the comments, and I hear this a lot. And I think the deal is this. In the old days, when your quarterback wasn't sucking up 25% of your salary cap, it was a lot easier to make luxury picks. Or it was a lot easier to move down in the draft and acquire some draft picks and get a guy that was comparable to what you could have got at the spot you were just at. But I believe that teams now have to pick for, and this goes along the lines of, is the Williams pick in the 3rd round a reach? You've got to pick for need more now than you did in the past. You don't have the luxury to always take best available. You've got to pick need because you have to build a big core of your team through the draft, because you can't afford, you can maybe go get one high price free agent, maybe two, or
Right.
moderately priced guys, but you just can't go out and open up the checkbook anymore because you've got Josh Allen making the money he's making, or you've got Aaron Rodgers, or you've got, Lamar Jackson. So it's the way teams are being built nowadays, it's different. And I think that, so when we make these comments about, oh, well, they could have just traded down 10 picks and still got, Campbell, maybe not. So if you got the guy there that you want and you want him, you got to make that pick.
Right. Well, the last pick was that we're going to talk about is the round 5 pick, 150, Justin Shorter, also out of Florida. Um, to me, he hasn't played a lot. He transferred to UF. He was at Penn State originally. Um, the one thing that I will say with him is a lot of people don't know, in 2018 during the recruiting cycle, he was the number 1 wide receiver recruit going into college. So he was ahead of Jamar Chase and he was ahead of Jalen Waddle. So he was standing out. Now he didn't quite have the years he wanted to at Penn State, so he transferred to UF. And UF didn't quite have the season that they wanted to, with whether or not it was injuries and whatnot. I really hope he can be who they're projecting him to be. Guy is big, physical. The one thing that we always said that frustrated us last year was drops. We got 2 guys in this draft that are known for not dropping the ball. Kincaid and Shorter are both 2 guys that have sure hands. The one thing that I tend to tell everybody, watch Shorter. I hated UF, but I definitely loved watching him with Richardson. He has the pretty much Richardson would throw the ball and just loft it, and Shorter can track it down.
Yeah,
So
that's a good assessment, because we know Richardson just threw the ball up and
yeah,
Shorter went got
that's what
it.
it was. He just threw the ball up, and Shorter is physical enough to do the 50-50 balls and stuff like that,
Right.
which is what I have been clamoring for. I kept on saying I wanted a big body, wide frame, still decent speed, but someone that could run routes and that was physical. And we got this. The guy's 230. I think that, and he has really good route running. He's more of a vertical threat. But I think he's going to compete with Davis being out there. I don't think he'll be a starter anytime soon. I think he'll come in, to kind of spell Davis and stuff. But I like it. I think it's a good pick. I think it was, 5th round was a little questionable for me. I felt like he would probably have been there in the 6th, but then we traded our 6th round pick, so for more next year. So I like it, and I think that he's going to be comfortable. He's got both Torrance and he's got Elam from last year, which he knows both of them. So he'll be feeling like he's comfortable already knowing people. So how did you feel about the pick?
I like the size. That gives us 2 wide receivers over 6'4" that we picked in the draft. You have to
The
think
other
about
one
that one.
that's not going to make the team.
No, the other one's the tight end that they picked in the
Oh,
first
okay.
round.
I thought you meant Shavers or whatever his name is. I'm
No,
like, he's
we
not going to
picked
make
two
the team.
wide. We picked 2 wideouts. One just happens to be a tight end. No, I like the Shorter pick. I mean, he's definitely got to get some polish to him. I think he's going to have to learn his routes, do his route running a little better. I think he was a 2 route guy, kind of a go ball, and a post guy. But he's physical. He's huge. I think he will help us in the land of Smurfs that we have.
Sorry, I
Um,
was just reading John's comment in the the comment section. So,
uh,
so that's why I laughed. Oh, alrighty.
so it's I think it's a great pick. I think it's wonderful.
All right. So I got to get going. I got to go pick up my son from the airport. You want to take us out?
Yep, I will. Hey, you listen to the Line to Gain here on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network, and we'll be back Well, I don't know if we'll be back Thursday or
Not
not.
next week. No,
Not
next week
next
I'll be
week.
on a cruise.
Yeah, next week we'll be off, and then probably the week after that we'll be back. Thursday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. She's Sara Larson, the Big O Jerry Ostrowski. As always, go Bills and one love.
Go Bills.